Ronel Blanco was ejected for sticky stuff yesterday. Coming back out to start the fourth inning, his glove was checked. The umpires found that it was sticky. They ejected him from the game, sent his glove to the commissioner's office. Of course, if you're caught using the sticky stuff, whatever it is, you get ejected, and a 10-game suspension is coming up. Ronel Blanco mentioned afterwards, plan is to appeal it based on what they hear. Watching that kind of transpire was weird, so bizarre, because you come out of and it's one thing to like be there because you start to see the build up. Oh, you see the umpires out there waiting for them. You see them come together, but the way that the shin, and they have no choice during commercial break, they come out, they like do like this ad, and then it's like the umpires are huddled around, and there's Ronel Blanco in the background. Like, what in the world just happened? But
the guys were still doing all the infield work, and he was the only guy on the field. And then thankfully later on they doubled back, and Blummer was able to say, because I was unaware of the fact that it's like random drug testing. They can look at the mitt and your hand whenever they want.
Yeah.
I always thought it was because you always see it going to commercial break, the pitcher leaving the mound and on his way to the dugout, and one of the first base ump or the home plate ump runs out there, does the hand check real quick, blah, 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 done. I was not aware of the fact that they randomly do it before an inning starts too, which kind of was my first thing. Like, that's why it was so confusing at first, because I'm like, what's he doing? And is he allowed to do that? Is that normal? Or is that something he's doing as a special trip because he saw something when he went back to the – and then it was just all of his hand gestures to the press box and all the things he was doing. I thought he trying to land a plane, or what's he doing with Blanco? And then all hell broke loose.
That was the weird thing to me. It's like, I didn't know that you could I knew that you could with relievers. Like, when relievers come in games, they usually check them first. I didn't realize with a starter that you could do it whenever you wanted. I went in and was Googling that, but I was unaware of that as well. Now, some of what was said after the game, like the Astros, basically admitted this. Joe Espada said in his postgame, I looked at the glove and it looked to me like there was rosin and sweat combined. Ronel Blanco talking through an interpreter after the game, I think it was rosin that mixed with sweat. And it's against the rules. Like, it's against the rules to have that on your non-throwing hand or your glove. So, the Astros basically admitted guilt here. So I really had no problem with the ejection. I have no problem with what's going to come with a suspension. Does it put the Astros in a tough spot? Yes, it does. It really makes it very difficult for Espada to handle the pitching staff in the midst of 29 of 30, with still 21 of 22 left in that 29 of 30, depending on when he serves the suspension or drops the appeal of a suspension, whatever happens. I don't have a problem with the ejection. Like, that is the rule. Is it a bad rule? That's up for debate. That's something you can argue, but it is the rule. Cannot have sticky stuff, cannot have the rosin combined with the sweat on the non-throwing hand for a pitcher. Now, what I don't like about this is that it does not seem consistent with the rest of Major League Baseball. Domingo Germán for the Yankees last year, actually got busted twice. They kicked him out of the second game. The first game, he was just told, hey, go wash your hands, switch your gloves. I think it was Clay Holmes of the Yankees that also had that happen. So what I don't like is the consistency of how this rule is enforced. If that is against the rules, okay, I have to adhere to the rules. Throw me out of a game, suspend me. That is the rules of baseball. I don't like the gray area of how one umpiring crew is going to eject the guy, and then you have two or three other umpire crews that say, you know what, just go wash your hands and you can keep throwing.
So Germán did it. Then I did a little bit of a deep dive last night and this morning, and a year ago to the day, yesterday, Schmidt of the Yankees was caught. He had a black glove on his non-pitching hand. He had black dye remnants from the glove, which first tipped off the umpires. When they looked, it was sticky and it was moist. They did the same thing. They told him he had to go in and wash his hands. It was against Cincinnati. And then he was able to continue. 2 days ago, Yamamoto of the Dodgers came out after his first or second inning, and the umpires said that there was a white, powdery, sticky substance on his glove.
I don't think Yamamoto was sticky stuff. I think it was because he had too much white on the glove. I don't think it was stickiness.
It depends. I saw 3 different articles, and 2 of the writers said that they identified a white, powdery substance on the glove that was somewhat sticky, so they asked him to change the glove. So to your point, what are we doing? If it's anything on the arm or the glove, are we just telling him wash your hands and change the glove? Or if it's on the glove and the arm, like they indicated after the game that he said he was putting stuff on his non-pitching arm, the rosin, then he's ejected. Like, you can't have it one way one time and a different way the next. It has to be consistent, or what are we doing?
Yeah, that's the biggest issue I have. Because, I mean, Espada said what he said, yes. Yeah, there was I think, rosin combined with sweat on the glove. Okay, well, that's an ejection, and that's a suspension based on how the rule is written. But you got to do it with the other guys that also happens here. And then it begs the question, well, what's the difference? And you look at some of what was said by the umpires after the game. Laz Diaz, Blanco said it was just rosin, and we told him this is not rosin. So that is the line of demarcation. Is like, if you think that it's rosin and sweat, like, they'll allow you to go wash your hands and get a new glove, all of that. But if they feel like it's more than rosin, well, now they're going to throw you out of the game, and they're going to have Major League Baseball is going to, do their background test with all the science, and then they're probably still going to suspend you because Max Scherzer had the rosin and sweat, and they suspended him. So the fact that it's so gray is what I don't like. Now you have different crews that are trying to judge what is sticky, how much is too sticky. Is this enough stickiness to throw him out of a game? Is this not enough stickiness to keep him in the game? So I think there should be the universal rule. If you find sticky stuff on the glove, whatever it is, whether you think it's rosin or whether you don't think it's rosin, it should be an ejection. It should be an ejection and a suspension.
Yeah, it has to be consistent. I mean, because, you think about it in the past, there are pitchers that change gloves. Fromber was one of those guys. They change gloves every inning sometimes, so they keep changing things. But you have to have consistency. And if you're not going to, I don't know if you saw the David Cohn video like a year ago or so. The other thing that bothers me is, you're not chemists. You're not the experts that go in and say, well, that's rosin or that's not, unless you know the different combinations of sweat, water, and rosin that can actually. Cohn did the video where he could actually put it on his fingertips, touch it to a baseball, and hold the baseball up off the table to realize that's pretty damn sticky. If you're able to do that and take gravity out of the equation, that means it's got some hold to it. It's got some stick. The first base umpire said it was the stickiest thing he's ever felt on a glove.
Yeah, he said it was the stickiest stuff I've felt on a glove since we've been doing this for a few years now. Now, how much of that is an umpire defending his actions? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, that's tough for me to take that seriously. But at the same time, like, hey, you felt sticky stuff, a guy should be ejected. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem that Blanco was ejected. And McTaggart just tweeted that Major League Baseball has issued a suspension to Ronel Blanco 10 games, undisclosed fine. Now, he can't appeal that, and, should he? We'll talk about it in a moment.
Right.
713-780-ESPN. A couple of the other things that were said off of this, asked if the umpires could determine what the substance was. Laz Diaz says, we don't determine that. We just felt it was sticky enough that our fingers got stuck. So if the line of demarcation is you feel like it's great, like, listen to what Laz Diaz said on two different answers. Blanco, said it was just rosin, and then we told him that it's not rosin. Later, Diaz asked if the umpires could determine what the substance was. Diaz said, we don't determine that. We just felt it was sticky enough that our fingers got stuck. That's talking out of both sides of your mouth.
Sure is.
You said that it was more than rosin, and now you're saying that you can't determine what the substance was. You said it was greater than rosin. So again, kind of the vague, gray inconsistencies of this. If you want to be strict with this rule, I have no problem being strict with this rule. It's got to be universal. It's got to be consistent. Joe Espada said from his vantage point that he saw rosin mixed with sweat on Ronel Blanco's glove. Of course, that's illegal. Blanco said through an interpreter, what I told him, the umpires, is that if he found something sticky in my glove, he should also check my hand because it should also be on my hand, Blanco said. He didn't want to check my hand. I don't think that matters, quite frankly, with all due respect to Ronel Blanco. I don't know why that is actually pertinent.
But then one of the articles I was reading in the Schmidt deal with the Yankees last year was that was part of the reason why he was allowed to wash his hands and wipe the glove down and be able to come back in the game, because the umpires then continued on by checking his hands when they realized there was no sticky stuff. That's when they allowed it to continue. So if he doesn't have sticky stuff on his hands, again, to your point about consistency, you're either going to have a checklist of checkpoints, and this is what's done when you find sticky stuff, and this is the ramification, or you're not, because doing this just by on a whim, what you feel, gut feeling, is it rosin, is it not, and what I believe was affecting or not affecting his pitching, you can't do that. It's not just by your discretion. It has to be the rules by the letter of the law, because this is a very, very, obviously a big issue in baseball, and it has been for several years.
Yeah, the consistency of it is flat out ridiculous. The first thing that I asked myself was, like, is Blanco getting an advantage here? Is he been doing this all year? Because he's been really, really good. So I think those are questions you have to ask. I saw some other people, I'm not smart enough to do these studies, where they measured RPMs, Ronel Blanco this year versus last year, and then this year versus his start yesterday. and they're actually really consistent.
Yep.
So I don't think Ronel Blanco was gaining a competitive advantage. Again, broke the rules. Yes, he should have been ejected. I think that he should be suspended. Just everybody else should be as well. But I don't think he was actually gaining a competitive advantage. I do believe him that he was unaware of the rule. And, like, it's the other weird part is you can use it on your arm. You can use it on your non-throwing arm, right? You can use it on your throwing hand. You can use it on your non-throwing arm. It just can't be on the hand, and it can't be on the glove of the non-throwing hand, which is, I mean, confusing.
That's the weird thing, too. It can be on your forearm, but it can't be on your hand or the glove.
Right, exactly. And two things about it. Like, Ronel Blanco was sweating like a pig. Like, go watch that first inning. I put a tweet out about it. Like, he was – and I noticed it in the first inning. It just, obviously you don't think that he's going to get ejected later. But he was sweating profusely. And then J.P. Sears changed jerseys because he sweat through his uniform, the pitcher that was pitching opposite of Ronel Blanco. And then the other thing, I went back and I watched the third inning today because it's like, okay, well, I understand why the rule's in place because if you get rosin and sweat, you get into the glove, you're trying to get, grip on the baseball. Maybe you're rubbing up the baseball over and over. You're kind of going to the glove and doing that stuff. I went back and watched the third inning. I never saw Ronel Blanco take his glove off so he can't rub down the baseball, and I never even saw him go at his glove. So I don't, again, suspension, understand, ejection, fine. I do not think that Ronel Blanco is gaining a competitive advantage, which is good news in terms of his 2024 being for real and not this Mike Scott scuffing the baseball type of rumor.
Think about it, because they were calling out Fromber a year ago. Fromber was rubbing down baseballs. Fromber sweats profusely. I forget who they were playing in the dugout was calling for him to be examined over and over again. It was really ticking off Dusty because they kept going to it because it might have been even a playoff game.
I don't remember, but I remember the situation, but I don't remember who
and he kept
when.
going like from the wrist to the ball to his temple and then rubbing everything down. I looked at some of the thing. You're more our numbers guy and analytics guy and all that spin rate stuff too. You find that a lot easier than I do, but I saw some of it looking for the same thing. Like, because if you remember, I think it was either Herman or it was Severino, but one of the two Yankees got dinged for it, also threw a no-hitter that year. So I was like, okay, are they going to try to say that Blanco's no-hitter wasn't legit and his start this year wasn't legit? And the more you look at the numbers, the more, to your point, they were pretty consistent throughout, even into last night's game, that it didn't seem that there was a competitive advantage. It didn't seem that there was a big difference. So then, I think hopefully it's a lot easier to say he wasn't full-blown cheating, because the one thing that was very, very telling to me was Dallas Braden, who does color analyst and a former pitcher in Major League Baseball, who threw a no-hitter. For doing the A's, you're playing against the A's. You could easily just say, oh, they're cheating and go on it from the homer perspective of being the A's telecast. Instead, he was the guy that defended him, saying, hey, man, when you get the sweat that rolls down your arm and with the rosin and it can get inside your mitt and it can chunk up and get sticky, that's what he thought it was. As an ex-pitcher, that was a little bit more relieving to me to say he wasn't actually trying to get a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I don't think that he realized what was happening. I don't think he realized that was a rule. And he even talked about it postgame. He said that, he's seen other pitchers, which, again, you can use it on the arm.
That's the
you can use it
thing.
to drive. And they also put it on the stinking mound. Like, this goes back to the sign stealing stuff. It's like, okay, this is going to be against the rules, but we're going to give you all this technology. Just don't do this one thing that we don't want you to do. It's like the same thing with the rosin bag. We're going to give you the rosin bag. Just don't do that one thing that you can't. So telling you can't do.
And you see guys pound their forearm when they're sweating with the rosin bag. So you can do it on your forearm, but don't put it on your hand. But God forbid if the sweat from the forearm that you put it on slides down into your hand or on your hand or in your mitt, then you face suspension and you face ejection. Like, what do we? And you can't put gauze on around your wrist or wear a wristband to keep it from going onto your hand.
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, it's weird. 713-780-ESPN. Let's go out to the HRP listener line. Bill and Katie, you're in the Hive with the Bees. What's up?
Hello, how you doing?
Good.
Good. I just want to know, how much do y'all think this is personal? He's in the Astros uniform. You think there's any remorse or anything? Because when a Yankees pitcher does it, it's okay. But when we do it, you're out of there. That's all I got to say.
I've seen that be a prevalent opinion on Twitter. I don't think that they're looking to go get the Astros in this situation. I mean, this is something that's protocol through umpires in baseball. It's been that way, and it's done as a regiment every game for the last couple of years, to where, I mean, if you feel it, you notice it, you have to say something about it. I think, to our point, there has to be more consistency in how it's enforced when you do feel it or find it. It is a little, I get it, though, it's a little bit bothersome.
Yeah.
Especially when you talk about, well, the Yankees and the Dodgers got away with it, and the Astros didn't.
Yeah, I think that there's some protecting big markets, like when we talk about sign stealing and stuff. I don't really think that's the case here. I think this is more just inconsistency amongst crews because it's very difficult. Like, okay, this umpire crew on the left and then this umpire crew on the right, you guys have to tell me what's too sticky and what's not too sticky. It's like, okay, which wine is good? You know, like the umpiring crew on the left and the umpiring crew on the right might have two different tastes. They might have two different interpretations. They might have two different opinions. That's why it's got to be consistent across the board. If it's sticky on the glove, you shouldn't be the gatekeeper on what's too sticky or not. If there's any stick at all, ejection, suspension, let's be consistent across the board. But I don't think that it was like a vendetta against the Astros. I don't believe that.
I think when you think about it, it's like different umpires have different strike zones. Different crews have different ways of calling, say, pass interference or roughing the quarterback in football or in basketball. You calling a tight game or you letting them play and letting them get physical. I mean, every crew is different, and every umpire has his own interpretation, obviously, and opinion of how to call that specific rule. And it's going to vary from crew to crew. And unfortunately, you know, with this crew, and I say unfortunately, but because it didn't benefit the Astros, but at the same time, this crew probably got it right by the rules.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the screw, actually. Now, the last Diaz, well, we felt it was more sticky than rosin, but then we're not going to determine what is rosin and what is not. Like, okay, well, that's a contradiction.